What if I told you the single greatest virtue in fishing, patience, is also the very thing killing your success? You get to a spot you know holds a monster. You make that perfect cast. Nothing. So you do it again and again. You're being patient, right? You're working the area. Wrong. You're not fishing. You're holding a class, and the fish are your students. In today's video, we're going to blow the lid off the biggest myth in angling, that hammering a spot over and over is the key to victory. I'm going to show you precisely how you are training the fish in your lake to avoid your lures forever. Stick with me, because what you're about to hear will probably contradict everything your granddaddy taught you about fishing, and it might just be the reason your favorite honey hole has gone dry. Before we dive in, let me ask you this, and be honest in the comments. Do you believe fish are smart enough to be educated by anglers? Yes or no? Let's see what you think. For generations, the ethos has been simple. Find a good spot and don't leave it. We've all been there. It's pre-dawn, the fog is still on the water, and you've got that one laydown, that one rock pile, that one weed edge that is always produced. The instinct, drilled into us, is to grind it out. We believe that if we just show the fish enough different lures, one of them will eventually trigger a bite. It's a battle of wills, us against the fish, and we think the most stubborn angler wins. This belief comes from a good place, a place of dedication and a refusal to give up. But it's based on an old, outdated view of fish behavior. We treat them like simple reactionary creatures that will eventually make a mistake if we just present the opportunity enough times. The problem is, we've been underestimating our opponent for far too long, and our own predictable habits are creating entire populations of uncatchable fish right under our noses. This isn't about one or two smart fish. It's about conditioning the entire ecosystem in that spot against you. Let's begin with the first cast. Picture this. A calm morning, the water is like glass. You've positioned your boat perfectly, a good distance from a submerged log where a big largemouth is likely waiting. You make a flawless cast, and your jig lands softly, just a few feet past the structure. This is your moment of maximum advantage. Any fish in the area that is actively feeding is now aware of this new potential meal. It might be curious, it might be aggressive, but right now, it's a natural-looking event. The element of surprise is entirely on your side. That first presentation is the purest, most honest question you can ask a fish. Are you hungry and willing to eat? If the answer is yes, the bite will often happen within the first few seconds or on the first retrieve. This initial cast is your golden ticket, the highest percentage play you have. Everything that happens from this point forward degrades this perfect scenario. It's a critical concept to grasp because we so often treat the first cast like a warm-up, when in reality, it's the main event. Now let's talk about the second cast. You didn't get a bite on the first one, so you reel in and fire another one out to the exact same spot. The lure splashes down again. To you, this is just another attempt. To the fish, this is new information and it's suspicious. The thing that fell from the sky and swam away just did it again. It's no longer a random natural event. It's a pattern. The fish's brain, which is wired for survival, starts to process this. The curiosity from the first cast might now be tinged with caution. It might follow the lure for a shorter distance this time, or it might just watch from the safety of its cover. The element of surprise is gone. You have now announced your presence and your intentions in a way that is not subtle. With every subsequent cast to that same location, you are reinforcing the idea that something is unnatural and potentially dangerous. You are moving from a hunter ambushing its prey to a noisy salesman knocking on the door over and over. The fish knows you're there, and its guard is going up with every splash. We need to understand how a fish perceives this. It's not just about what they see. The most important sense in this equation is their lateral line. Think of it as a full-body sonar system, a series of nerve receptors that run along the fish's sides, detecting minute vibrations and pressure changes in the water. When your lure splashes down, it sends a pressure wave, a thump through the water. The first time, it might signal food. The second, third, and fourth time, in the exact same spot, that thump becomes a signal of a persistent, non-natural disturbance. The vibration of your crankbait, the pulse of your spinnerbait blades, these are not just attractants. After repeated passes, they become identifiable signatures of a threat. The fish doesn't need to see your lure to know it's there. It can feel its repetitive mechanical path through the water, and its brain registers this as something to be avoided, not attacked. You're not just spooking them with sight, you're screaming at them through their most sensitive detection system. Of course, they also use their eyes. In reasonably clear water, a fish can get a good look at your lure. On the first pass, it might look like a struggling baitfish or a crawfish, but when that same object is dragged past its face 5 times in 2 minutes, the illusion shatters. The fish starts to notice the details, the unnatural shine of the split ring, the stiff movement, the hooks. It's like watching a magic trick a second time. You start to see the strings. This is especially true for highly pressured fish in popular public lakes. They have seen thousands of lures. They become connoisseurs of fakes. Your repeated casting gives them an extended period to study your offering and conclude that it is not food. You're essentially giving the fish an examination, and your lure is the subject. The more times they see it, the more likely they are to pass the test and ignore it. This visual confirmation, combined with the sensory data from their lateral line, builds an undeniable case in the fish's mind. This is a trap. So where is the tipping point? When does a fish's curiosity or feeding instinct turn into caution and outright fear? It happens much faster than most anglers think. For an aggressive, actively feeding fish, it might take a few casts. But for a neutral or negative fish, just 1 or 2 repeated presentations might be enough to shut it down completely. It won't just ignore your lure, it will actively avoid it and may even abandon the cover it was using. This is the moment the education begins. The fish has learned that a specific disturbance in its environment, the splash, the vibration, the visual of your lure, equals a potential threat. It's no longer a neutral stimulus, it's a negative one. And here's the kicker. This learning isn't forgotten when you leave. The next time that fish senses a similar disturbance, its ingrained caution will kick in even faster. You haven't just failed to catch a fish, you've made it harder for yourself and everyone else to catch that fish in the future. Let's be very clear about what we mean by fish education. This isn't some cartoonish idea of fish sitting in a classroom. We are talking about a very real, scientifically observed phenomenon called associative learning. It's the same basic principle that allows you to train a dog. If a bell rings every time the dog gets food, it soon learns to salivate at the sound of the bell alone. For fish, the process is inverted. If a strange, vibrating object with hooks repeatedly appears in their home, and maybe they even see a fellow fish get yanked out of the water after biting one, they learn to associate that object with danger and stress. They associate the sound of your trolling motor, the shadow of your boat, and the plop of your lure with a negative outcome. This isn't about intelligence in the human sense. It's about a highly effective survival mechanism. The fish that learn to avoid these non-natural threats are the ones that survive to grow old and big. We are literally breeding smarter, more cautious fish. This process of associative learning is incredibly powerful. Let's say a bass strikes your plastic worm and feels the hook for a split second before throwing it. What has it learned? It's learned that a certain shape, scent, and texture, which seemed like an easy meal, caused pain. The next time it sees a similar plastic worm, its survival instinct will scream danger. Now, expand this concept. A fish doesn't even need to be hooked. It just needs to experience the negative stimulus of being bombarded. Imagine someone throwing a rock at your window every 5 minutes. You don't need to get hit by the rock to learn that you should stay away from that window. The fish in that laydown are experiencing the same thing. Your lure is the rock. Its repeated appearance is a stressful event that trains them to stay deep in their cover, to become wary, and to stop feeding until the threat, you, goes away. This is conditioning, plain and simple, and we are the ones doing the conditioning. In this scenario, your lure has transformed from a tool of deception into a tool of education. It is actively teaching the fish what to avoid. Every time you reel that crankbait past that stump without a bite, you are reinforcing the lesson. You are showing the fish, here is that fake noisy thing again. See, it's not real food. It just keeps annoying you. Think about the implications. If you spend 30 minutes throwing 5 different crankbaits at the same spot, you haven't just taught the fish to avoid one specific lure. You've potentially taught them to be suspicious of all hard-bodied, vibrating lures in that color range. You've narrowed their strike window and made them more selective. Your attempt to find what they want has actually had the opposite effect. You've shown them a whole category of things they should now ignore. You are, quite literally, vaccinating them against your own tactics, making them immune to your presentation. Consider the fish's zone of awareness. This isn't just the area it can see. It's the entire radius around it where it can detect you and your lure through sight, sound, and vibration. When you make that first cast, you impact the target fish and any other fish within that zone. With each subsequent cast, you are not only re-alerting the primary target, but you're also putting every other fish in the vicinity on high alert. A bass hiding under a nearby dock, a crappie suspended off the edge of the weed line. They all feel that pressure wave. They might see the flash. You might think you're working on one specific fish under a log, but you're actually souring a whole area the size of a living room. The negative conditioning spreads. After 10 or 15 casts, you've effectively created a dead zone of cautious, non-biting fish around your target, making the entire spot progressively less productive with every minute you stay there. This directly impacts how fish populations in a given area behave. On heavily fished lakes, you're not just dealing with one fish's learned behavior, you're dealing with the collective, conditioned response of the entire community. When the school of crappie under the bridge gets peppered with jigs every Saturday, they learn to feed only at night or to drop deep into the channel where most anglers can't reach them. The big bass on the main lake point learns that the sound of a big outboard motor followed by a splash means danger is imminent. This is how hotspots turn cold. It's not usually because the fish have left. It's because the fish have adapted to the constant, predictable pressure from anglers making the same mistakes over and over. They become conditioned to hunker down and wait it out, knowing that eventually the assault will stop. By repeatedly casting, you are playing right into this learned defensive behavior. But what about the reaction strike? This is the argument I hear all the time. If I just rip that lure past its face enough times, eventually it will bite out of pure instinct or anger. Yes, reaction strikes are real, but they are a low percentage play that we rely on far too heavily. A true reaction strike happens when a lure suddenly appears and violates a fish's personal space, triggering a defensive or aggressive reflex before the fish can even process what it is. This works best when the fish is surprised. Can you surprise a fish on your 15th cast to the exact same spot? Absolutely not. It knows you're there. It's been watching and feeling your lure for the last 10 minutes. By bombarding a spot, you are taking the single most important ingredient for a reaction strike, the element of surprise, completely off the table. You might eventually annoy a fish into biting, but it's a desperate tactic. And for every one time it works, there are 99 times it simply educates the fish further. This is also why simply changing lures often fails to reignite a dead spot. Anglers will make 20 casts with a spinnerbait, get nothing, and then tie on a jig. They make another 20 casts, still nothing, so they switch to a wacky rig. The thinking is that a new presentation will flip the switch, but the fish have already been conditioned by the disturbance. The core problem isn't the lure, it's your presence and your repetitive activity. You've already alerted them and put them into a negative defensive mood. Switching from a noisy spinnerbait to a subtle wacky rig might seem like a smart move, but to the fish, it's just a new character in the same bad play. The stage is already set for failure. The fish have learned that this specific patch of water is a place of annoyance and danger. A different lure is unlikely to change that conditioned response once it has been established. The only real solution is to let the curtain fall and move to a new stage entirely. Let's not forget the biggest signal of our presence, the boat. We try to be quiet, but to a fish, a 12 to 20-foot object floating above them is a terrifying predator. It blocks out the sun, creating a massive moving shadow that screams, danger. Every time you shift your weight, open a tackle box lid, or drop a pair of pliers, that sound is amplified through the hull and into the water. Your trolling motor, even on its lowest setting, produces a constant, unnatural hum and vibration that fish can detect from a long way off. So, while you're sitting there making cast after cast, you are a giant, noisy monster parked on their ceiling. The longer you sit in one spot, the more you normalize your threatening presence in that area, and the more the fish will associate that specific location with that overhead threat. Your best chance is to make a few precise casts and get out, minimizing the time that this huge, ominous shadow is hanging over their heads. Sound is a massive factor we often ignore. Water transmits sound far more efficiently than air. The plop of your half-ounce jig hitting the water sounds like a cherry bomb to a fish just a few feet away. The clicking of the rattles in your crankbait, the squeak of your reel handle, the clang of a hook against the side of the boat, all of these are foreign, alarming noises in their world. When you repeat these sounds over and over from the same position, you create a symphony of danger. The fish quickly learns to identify this specific combination of sounds. It's like hearing a specific car alarm. You know exactly what it is and that it's not a natural part of the environment. Instead of attracting fish, this repeated auditory assault convinces them to bury themselves deeper into cover or to simply vacate the area until the noise stops. We think we're being stealthy, but in many cases, we are the loudest thing in their world. So, we arrive at the million-dollar question: how many casts is too many? There is no single magic number for every situation, but a general rule of thumb for a specific piece of cover, like a single stump, a dock piling, or a small rock, is between 3 and 5. Your first cast should be your best, most accurate attempt to trigger an active fish. The next couple of casts are to slightly different angles, trying to appeal to a fish that might not have seen the first one perfectly. If you get no response after, say, 5 well-executed casts, the odds of a bite drop dramatically with every subsequent attempt. For a larger area, like a 100-foot stretch of a weed line, you should be making a few casts and then moving the boat. The key is to avoid casting to the exact same patch of water more than a handful of times. The goal is to present your lure to fresh fish that have not yet been alerted or conditioned by your presence. It's a fundamental shift in mindset from working a spot to covering water effectively. This leads us to a much more effective strategy: rest and return. If you have a high-confidence spot that you know holds fish, but it doesn't produce in your first few casts, the worst thing you can do is stay there and hammer it. The best thing you can do is leave. Go fish another part of the lake for an hour, maybe 2. Let the spot cool down. This gives the fish time to forget about the disturbance. Their sense of immediate danger will fade, and they may resume their normal feeding positions and behavior. When you return, you must do so with stealth. Approach from a different angle. Use the wind to drift in silently if possible. When you make your first cast this time, you have once again regained the element of surprise. The spot has been reset. This approach requires discipline. It's hard to leave a spot you know is good. But it is infinitely more effective than trying to force a bite from fish that you have already put on high alert. You must start thinking like a hunter, not a sentry. A sentry stands in one place, guarding a post, waiting for something to happen. This is the mindset of the angler who makes 100 casts at a single log. A hunter, on the other hand, is constantly on the move, using stealth, surprise, and strategy to intercept their prey. A hunter doesn't announce their presence and then wait for the deer to walk up to them. They stay hidden, they move quietly, and they make their first shot count. This is how you need to approach fishing. Your boat is your mobile hunting blind. Your cast is your single, well-placed shot. If you miss, or if there's no target there, you don't keep firing into the same bush. You quietly move on to the next likely location, always seeking to maintain that crucial element of surprise. This proactive, mobile approach will always outperform the static, repetitive one in the long run, especially on pressured waters. And don't think this concept only applies to bass. It is universal. Trout in a clear stream are notoriously easy to educate. One bad cast or the shadow of your line can put an entire pool down for an hour. Crappie, which are often thought of as less intelligent, will absolutely become wary of a boat sitting directly on top of their brush pile, especially after they've seen a few of their schoolmates get hoisted out. Walleye holding on a deep rock pile will tolerate a certain amount of disturbance, but a constant barrage of heavy jigs and rattling crankbaits will eventually cause them to either glue their bellies to the bottom or slide off into deeper, inaccessible water. Even saltwater species like snook and redfish will quickly learn to distinguish a real shrimp from an artificial one that gets thrown at them a dozen times. The survival instinct to avoid persistent, unnatural threats is hardwired into almost every fish you will ever target. Perhaps the biggest obstacle to adopting this new approach is not the fish, it's us. It's the psychological barrier in the angler's own mind. We are conditioned to believe that more effort in one spot equals more success. Leaving a spot after only a few casts feels like giving up. It feels lazy. It runs counter to the work ethic many of us hold dear. We have to fight that instinct. We must redefine what working hard on the water means. It doesn't mean making the most casts. It means making the most high-quality strategic casts. It means having the discipline to move on, to trust that covering more water will expose your lure to more active, unpressured fish. It requires confidence in your ability to find fish elsewhere rather than a desperate hope to activate the ones you've already shut down. It's a mental game, and to win it, you have to be willing to unlearn some of your oldest habits. So, how do you actively rewire your brain on the water? Start by setting clear rules for yourself. For your next trip, make a pact that you will not make more than 5 casts to any single piece of isolated cover. Use your trolling motor not to hold your position, but to keep you in a state of constant slow movement. Think of yourself as drifting. Your goal is to present your lure to as many new fish as possible during the day. Focus intensely on that first cast into a new area. Put all your effort into making it perfect. The right angle, the right trajectory, a quiet entry. Treat every cast as if it's your only one. Over time, you will start to see the results. You will get more bites from unexpected places. You will feel more like you are actively hunting and less like you are passively waiting. This shift in tactics and mindset is what separates good anglers from great ones. You stop fighting the fish's intelligence and start using it to your advantage. So, let's bring it all home. For years we've been told to be persistent, to hammer a spot until it gives up a fish. But today, we've seen that this is fundamentally flawed. You're not wearing the fish down, you're wising them up. The most shocking takeaway here isn't just that fish are smart. It's that we are personally responsible for making them smarter with every redundant cast into the same small area. The big aha moment is realizing that your lure isn't just a potential meal. It's a textbook. The splash, the vibration, the unnatural movement. It's a lesson in what to avoid. This completely changes the game. It means moving on isn't failure. It's the smartest tactical decision you can make. It means your stealth, your first cast, and your willingness to cover water are infinitely more valuable than your ability to stand in one spot for an hour. Thank you so much for watching and for being willing to challenge old habits. If this opened your eyes, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more content that breaks the mold. Now, for the final question I want you to chew on in the comments. After hearing all this, what is the one habit you are going to change on your very next fishing trip? Be specific. Let's all learn from each other. Tight lines.